Hello and welcome to another members only podcast. And we're talking youth pitching. And if we're talking pitching, we are going to be talking to the folks at the Lions Den, one of which is our guest today, Mr. Matt Tabor. Matt, thank you very much for taking the time to join me today.
Appreciate
And
it all.
Matt is a co-owner with a guy by the name of Tyler Beede. Yep, same last name. He is a relation. That is my youngest son. And they are anything and everything and all things related to pitching. So I really want to encourage parents, athletes, you have questions about pitching, even if they're simple, basic questions for an 8-year-old or a really complicated question regarding grips or sequencing or tunneling as an 18 to 20-year-old, the Lions Den, Porter, Texas. They are on X and Instagram, as well as the Lions Den for your website, the Lions Den
LionsandHTX.com.
HDX.
HTX, Houston, Texas.
Oh
HTX.
man, oh, way above who? HTX. I'm a Boston guy. These guys used to be Boston guys, by the way. Now they walk around with belt buckles and cowboy hats. And they live in Texas. We're going to start today, Matt. We get a lot of questions pertaining to pitching, and they generally are a lot of the older guys. But we're going to try to focus on some of the younger guys that are learning the craft of pitching. And today's topic is going to be building a strong pitching foundation for long term success. And so when you're starting to work with, let's say, the 12 to 14 or 15 year olds, they're making that move to the big diamond and they're kind of falling in love with the position of being a pitcher. What are some of the foundational kind of practice routines or practice habits that pitchers can do on their own, whether it's in the bedroom, the basement, the backyard, et cetera? What are some of the drills that they can do on their own without having to wait for a lesson or a coaching practice?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll touch on two things, right? Like stuff that they can do without necessarily throwing, and then stuff that they can do throwing that I think is super important. I'll start with the throwing, and this is one of the most, whether you're, a 9-year-old kid, moving into, the 60 feet, time or whatever, or you're even like guys in the big leagues do this, right? But it's like extended mound catch play. So finding a time where you can extend it out like to 90 feet to 100 feet and work off the mound, and it just really helps reinforce like your extension through the target. And I think that's super important. So for guys that are kind of moving from that, smaller diamond to bigger diamond, like don't just stop at 60, whether, it's a, dad and son kind of going to a local field and, just moving way back. It doesn't have to be like a bullpen. They don't have to get down, but it's just, hey, playing catch off the mound, feeling what that means to actually extend through the target. I think can really help bridge that gap for, some of the younger guys that are transitioning. And then really kind of like just stuff they could do in the basement, any type of dry wrap stuff like that. I think, towel drill has been, in the past few years kind of, 50-50, as, some people have said, hey, this isn't good, whatever. I think it's really good if it's not a focus on the arm, right? We're not trying to use the towel to focus on the arm. We're trying to use the towel to ingrain a lower half position, ingrain some type of, holding the stack or some type of posture when you're on the mound. If you're utilizing it for that, I think you do it all day. I did it in my career. I always loved it. It was never to get extension or to feel the towel or anything. It was just more to get reps on the mound that was easy on my arm. And so 50% with the towel and just really have a specific purpose and a focus, and they, guys can do that all day.
One of the other questions that I get a lot of is trying to explain what competitive catch means. And I try to get parents to understand, particularly at the college and professional level, pitchers, they become catch partners. You have a partner, you're working on grips, but it's a competitive catch. You have a purpose, there's intent, there's feel for where the ball is being released, but there's a target, and I always tried to tell young pitchers, if you have a small target, you'll have a small miss. And so, can you talk about the value of playing catch with a purpose or having an intent with regard to competitive catch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you hit on a great word there, Walt. It's purpose, right? You should have a purpose with every single thing you do, whether that's, going to the mound, pitching the game, or, playing light catch, or even just, again, some recovery, right? It should all be for a purpose, and you should know exactly what you want to achieve when you're done with it, right? So like if it's light catch, you want to achieve a certain, whatever, spin on your breaking ball, or you want to locate a fastball to your arm side, right? Like that's what the best in the game are doing is they have a specific purpose that's so hyper focused and they're getting 1% better every day. And so, it's almost like setting that purpose can almost set like some type of achievement or goal for yourself, and you compete against yourself to kind of earn that, right? So I tell you whether I'm going to go 15 out of 20 fastballs successfully located to my glove side. I'm counting that in my head. I'm competing against myself in my head, and then by the time I say, hey, I'm done, one, I didn't overthrow, right? Because I said I was going to throw 20 and I threw 20 rather than chasing a feel or mechanical pattern or whatever and throwing 80. Right. But then I also was able to, kind of get a little bit of a feeling of a competitive day that wasn't necessarily in the game. And, always kind of striving and getting over that hump of the competitive nature, I think is super important. And you have to learn how to compete with yourself just as much as you learn how to compete with others.
A follow-up question to that are there any common mistakes that young pitchers make that may increase the risk of injury? And what are some of your drills that you might recommend that parents and coaches can do to correct those, early in a young pitcher's career?
For sure. And this wouldn't necessarily be a drill wall, but I know we talked about it on the last episode. But young kids throwing back to back days, doesn't matter what the pitch count regulations is. Doesn't matter. It's just it's downright like irresponsible for young athletes to be pitching back to back days. Even in the major leagues, you only see the best relievers doing that, and it's rare that they do. And when they do, they get 2 or 3 days off afterwards. I hear horror stories all the time of guys getting their pitch counts abused. And, they're throwing 2, 3 back-to-back days, and they're within the limit, but you're doing more damage to the kid's arm than you are any help at that point, and you're making him tired. So then it screws up his next 2 or 3 weeks. So just from a parent perspective, like put the foot down if it's going to be a back-to-back day pitching. It's good for your son's long-term health. Any type of drill work, I think, like I mentioned, kind of the long catch play, but also just kind of like really really working on controlling the lower half. So getting with a local pitching coach and saying, hey, how that's the first question you should always ask is how can I optimize my lower half, right? Like not throw harder, not do anything else. It's hey, what's wrong with my lower half? How can I fix this? That's the foundation to the house that you build the first floor on, the second floor on, ultimately a roof, etc. as you go on throughout your career. But nothing happens without a strong, stable lower half and holding the stack into the drop and down the mound.
One of the things I always encourage from a parent's perspective, and I used to have Tyler do this when he was young. When you are throwing a bullpen, if you're on a clay mound or you're getting ready to play a game, when you hit foot strike, when your student athlete gets the foot strike, if the pitch is going low and in the dirt, that means their foot is coming down too early. If the ball is going very, very high or over the catcher's glove or mask, that means their foot is coming down too late. But when you throw a really good pitch right down the middle, or wow, that really felt good, mark that off. Like that's where I want to kind of get to foot strike and repeat foot strike every single pitch. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of every pitcher's stride length is going to be different, but talk a little bit about maybe some drills that they can help incorporate how to find that proper distance from the pitching rubber to foot strike out on the mound.
Definitely. And when you watch side video, right, that's one of the best things to do is you're what you're trying to see, right, is like if the legs are kind of like this, right, you want to see the torso directly in the center. It's like kind of your center of mass. You don't want that to be too far leaky forward. You don't want that to be too far back. And so a really good thing to do is to kind of have the athlete start, where they're kind of fully at that front foot strike position and then kind of come up into leg lift out of it, and then don't throw the ball, just come back down, and then come up and come back down. Then the third one we go, and then we throw the ball, and it kind of helps reinforce that movement of kind of working backwards up through it, down back into it, right, and saying, okay, this is kind of what it feels like both ways to help kind of create that consistency. That's a really good one. But there's also just like even throws out of a kind of a no stride position where you're at that foot strike, position, and you're just working on rotation and keeping the center of mass kind of almost like there's a pole down through our head. That can really really go miles for young athletes.
Can you talk about the importance of allowing young pitchers, again, 8 to say 16, to remain athletic and not become robotic? Can you talk a little bit about, we can become over paralyzed through our thinking as opposed to just instinctually trusting our preparation in being athletic. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the most important thing, right? And the best way to phrase it, I think, is that having an internal focus versus having an external focus. And so, I had an analogy that was given to me when I was playing was, where do you want the spotlight to be, right? Do you want the spotlight to be on you, or do you want it to be on home plate where you're trying to execute, right? You want to always have that visual of the spotlight's there. And that's where the action's happening. Nothing I do is going to be consistent, like to a T every single time. Because I am an athlete, things differ, right? Like there's various different things that happen over the course of 5 seconds from a pitch to pitch that makes something different, right? Whether there's a new hole in the dirt or whatever it may be, right? And so maintaining that athleticism and keeping that external focus is super, super important. And then playing other positions for as long as you possibly can. I think having fun out there is super important as well. And that's probably a conversation for a different time. But think about the spotlight analogy. That's one thing that always helped me a lot.
I think that's a tremendous insight from somebody that's done it for a very long time. I think parents need to understand it's very, very good to begin to learn the craft of throwing. Pitching is the craft of throwing. When we walk and we want to become a sprinter or a marathoner, first we have to walk. We have to learn to crawl to walk, walk to intense walking, and then to the sprint and the efficiency of a sprinter and so forth. And the same thing goes with pitching. It's not something that one can master in a 2-year time period. It really takes a period of time. And on that note, we always get questions, Matt, about arm slot. What is a natural arm slot? How does a pitcher find their arm slot? Can you give a little bit about not only the arm slot, but at foot strike, what should the arm look like to the layman, to the parent, or the young coach? At foot strike, where does that arm or elbow want to be?
Yeah, definitely. You got to think about it 3D, right? So I'll kind of try to do my best job here on camera. But you want to have the arm up first off, so up at 90 degrees. But you also want to have it be behind the athlete, right? Because if it's not, if the athlete is flipping up, it's all rotational, right? So if the athlete's here and he's flipping up, he's now flipping up outside of his body, which is very stressful. So we have to be able to keep the front shoulder closed and flip up behind. That's when we accelerate through. If athletes are able to time that up correctly, that means that their limbs or their upper half is working correctly, and not only from a positional standpoint, because a lot of it's not positional, a lot of it's just timing and timing up the lower half, like you mentioned, Walt, into the front foot strike, while also delaying that front shoulder, keeping the tension in the core, and allowing that arm to fully flip up. That's kind of where everything's seamless and things just kind of fly out, and it feels like butter.
So I want to encourage parents. This is the type of information we're going to continue to provide. I want you to go over, follow on X or Instagram because they have a lot of great videos. They have a lot of great instructional little clip videos that you can learn from. Again, it's the Lion's Den, and that is located in Porter, Texas, or Houston, Texas. The Lion's Den, htx.com. You can speak with Matt or any of the instructors that are there, including Tyler. And I encourage you, send us your questions, whether you send them to me and I forward them over to Matt or Tyler, or contact Matt or Tyler directly at the Lion's Den. Matt, I want to say thank you very much for joining me today, and I look forward to talking with you next week.
Good stuff, Walt. Thanks.